Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight, coming to you Monday to Friday on CGTN. I'm Tian Wei. Now let's turn to Johannesburg, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is attending the 10th BRICS Summit. The theme this year is collaboration for inclusive growth and shared prosperity in the fourth industrial revolution. During the three-day meeting, President Xi and other leaders will discuss global governance and improving cooperation on industrialization. They will also explore joint efforts in new areas such as peacekeeping, gender equity, and tourism. BRICS countries are not only emerging economies, but also increasing their cultural influence. Brazilian writer, for example, Paulo Coelho, is one of the most influential novelists from Brazil and having a huge impact on the literary scene in the world today. As a teenager, though, he refused to follow the traditional path, and his parents committed him to a mental institution. Later, he took law, but dropped out to pursue his writing career. In 1988, his best-known novel, The Alchemist, was published. This novel has become an international bestseller, translated into 70 languages. In 2007, Mr. Coelho was appointed as the UN Peace Ambassador because of the great influence of his work. Earlier, I had a one-on-one interview with him. Let's listen in. Mr. Paulo Coelho, what a pleasure to have you on CGTN.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you have a wild heart and quite a life. However, writing also demands consistency, strong will, and sitting down. People would say that's quite a contrast.
In fact, writing demands basically discipline and inspiration. You have to combine the two. I just finished the new book, and I know what I'm talking about because sometimes it's painful, sometimes there is a lot of pleasure. But if you want to put your ideas in a paper, you have to be able also to organize your mind so you can type it down, something that it is in your heart.
Mm-hmm. You always began writing a new book when you see so-called the white feather falling down. I really wonder, when you talk about your new book, did you also see another new feather falling down in the air?
It started with my first book because I was very insecure. Should I write? Should I not write? And then in January, normally, every 2 years, because I only write a new book every 2 years, I said, if I see a feather today, it is for me to write my first book. And I did see the feather. So I created this tradition to myself.
All right. Did you try to bring yourself somewhere, for example, to the feather factory in order to see the feathers? Because you really decided to write.
Yeah. It's not easy to find a feather, but it must be every 2 years and in January, you know. So otherwise, I'll be writing books non-stop.
Yes, exactly. But let's just be serious for a moment. Mr. Coelho, you walked 800 kilometers when you were in your late 30s. You thought that was a critical moment, eureka moment for you, that you have decided what to do with your life. Why is that important? What was that 800 kilometers like for you?
You have this book translated in Chinese. It's called The Pilgrimage. I explain you why. I always had this dream of becoming a writer. But like any dream, you are always postponing. And one day I did this pilgrimage from France to Spain, well, to have a kind of rite of passage. And then at the end of this pilgrimage, because I was happy, I had love, I had money, I had everything that a man can dream of. But at the end of this pilgrimage, I told to myself, either you write or you forget about writing, because you cannot say, I'm a writer, and you don't dare to follow your dream to write a book. So this pilgrimage was for me this turning point of my life.
We are so glad as readers that you made that pilgrimage. That's why we could have all of these wonderful books, sir. But having said that, though, sir, let me ask you, what was it in your heart that you have to be a writer? Why is it important for you to be a writer? What is the importance of writing?
Okay, I tell you, to me, because it is my way to express myself, but I believe that each and every one of us have a way to express him or herself. And life is about sharing. You can be in the beautiful sunset, and if you're alone, this is really very oppressive. And you can be in a train station, and if you are with someone that you love, it becomes heaven. So we need to share. It's part of a human condition to share something. Otherwise, you are nothing, nothing, nothing.
Got it. But sometimes literature could be the one that is really helping to heal the wounds, but at other times, literature in its real essence could also be the one that is really there to reveal the scars.
You're right, but when a writer is writing, well, I'm talking for myself, but when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about this. I'm thinking that I am a human being. It is my condition as a human being to share something. It can be a flower arrangement. It can be cooking. By the way, I have to say that the best cuisine in the world is the Chinese cuisine. Having said that, you have to be able to share, And then when you write or when you cook, you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking, is this something beyond yourself? So you said, my God, this is my way to express my love, to express my soul, to express myself. And you do. But you don't try to heal wounds or to provoke, whatever. You try just to express your heart.
Think about it, how you express yourself, the piles of books, the bestsellers that is spreading around the world. How could one writer be so resourceful, abundant, and rich, always bring out things, and always from the bottom of the heart, and always not repeating him or herself?
Today we have over 215 million books sold.
Yes.
And the books in China are growing. And I decided that I should do my best. But to be totally honest with you, of course, my dream was being translated and present all over the world, which is the dream of every single writer. So, because at the moment that someone understands a book, he understands also his soul or her soul. When I went to China, for example, I knew that my soul had arrived before myself. Because when I went to Shanghai, when I went to Nanking, when I went to Beijing, people used to come to me and say, oh, I love your books, this and that and that. So I felt at home. That is the magical thing about writing or about doing something that you do with enthusiasm.
But Mr. Coelho, you think about that. Literature, even though your books sell very well, hundreds of millions of copies worldwide, some say is dying because people just do not want to read the long works anymore, given what we're having today with the technology. What do you think about the fate of literature? Does it matter to you?
It matters, it concerns me, and I must say that I'm a little bit worried because the tendency is really to read shorter books, etc. But then you see this schizophrenic attitude with critics, for example. Critics, they belong to a world that does not exist anymore. And if you read the life of, because I've been heavily criticized in my life because I try to be direct and try to be simple. This is the key of my success, so to say. But then critics want us to be still in the 19th century writing about, well, describing a hat. When today you open your phone and you see a hat. You don't need to describe a hat. So what I do when I write is to go to the core of the subject. I'm not going to describe how you're dressed. I'm not going to describe the environment. I'm going to describe your feelings. And this is what, for me, is the difference. That's why it's so complicated to be simple. Because to be simple is to be able to cut, and then show what is inside your work.
Exactly. So there is talk, in the world, Mr. Gualio, about what the world is really about. Many want to quote Charles Dickens saying, "This is the best of the time, this is the worst of the time." To you as a writer, to you as someone who wants to cut the crap to the real essence of things, what exactly is this world to you?
Well, I only know what's happening now. Now I mean at this present moment. So when I leave this interview, I'm going outside, I'm here in Geneva, and I'm going to look around, and the streets are going to tell me a story. And I don't know if the world is moving for better or worse. What I know is that I have a responsibility as a celebrity to say what I think, and but that is it. So I don't know if the world is better or worse now. I know that the world is, period. So I'm going to try to be here and now every single moment of my life, which is not easy, by the way, because you have this tendency to, well, to elaborate, to give meanings, things like this, but we have to be here and now.
No, it's not easy, as you just mentioned. You're originally from Brazil, one of the emerging economies. You also see writers, growing in the developing and emerging economies. Do you think there is a much more alternative voice in the literature world these days, rather than just those from the English world? After all, your work has been translated into more than 80 languages. But will we make the world more interesting than it used to be? Mr. Gualio.
I believe so. I believe so. I used to read the New York Times bestseller list, for example, and there were only American authors 10 years ago. And then you start to see a foreign author, a second foreign author, and then I myself, Paulo, I've been for 8 years in the New York Times bestseller list, which means that, for example, Americans are much more open now than they were before. So, and the same for Brazilians, the same for Chinese, the same for, you mentioned. So I think that yes.
Yes. Mr. Paulo Coelho, what a pleasure to have you here on our program. I wish next time we could see face-to-face with one another in the same space. But for now, thank you enormously for your work and also for your input. Paulo Coelho, that is one of the most well-known authors of the world. He's selling more than 200 million copies around the world. And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us World Inside CGTN into your search engine or check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Sina Weibo. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the World Inside team, thanks for watching, and tune in again next time for insights across China and around the world. Good night.